Welcome to the Fore WR podcast.
What a bum.
Well, I wouldn't say that. We're
No,
bums
huge
compared
bum.
to him.
That's true. Yeah, good point. Maybe not a bum. Maybe not a bum. Dave, how you doing there, buddy? How's life going for you?
Pretty good. Thanks for asking. How are you doing, Alex?
Good. I mean, I feel like I should just ask because we're doing a podcast together, and I feel like it's the polite thing to do. Otherwise, I might not ask.
Oh, we're just making small talk just to
Small talk,
make it. Okay, you don't really care.
Well, it's a varying levels of caring, I guess.
Let's skip the small talk and get right to it. What are we talking about today?
Let's go, Dave. Well, first of all, we should welcome everybody to the Fore WR podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Where our views are skyrocketing, and we'll say that. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If you haven't already, then like and subscribe this baby, or thumbs up, as we are reminded. No likes over here. Thumbs up on the old YouTube. So do that. It just takes a second. That'd be great. On the Fore WR podcast, we talk about football, fantasy football, golf, disc golf, really anything that somebody would want to do on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. Today, we're going to talk about wide receivers in the fantasy football league, or I guess just wide receivers in the football league, and their stats are probably affecting their fantasy football numbers, of course. So we're going to talk about the top four performing, so we're going to talk about the top four wide receivers that are the most surprising this season so far, right, Dave?
Yeah, let's call it the top four wide receiver surprises of 2023.
Let's go. All right, Dave. So you want to kick this thing off with number 4?
Sure, yeah. This is a wide receiver that has had flashed a ton of potential in a high-powered offense. Currently not secured with a contract, and he's going to be a free agent after this year if he and his team can't get a deal done. And we're talking about T. Higgins here, who was routinely selected in the second, third rounds of most fantasy drafts. And right now he's the 67th ranked fantasy wide receiver. So if you took him in the second or third round, you're just having a miserable season with him right now. He's missed a lot of games due to injuries. This is a surprise because a lot of people expected him to, have a good year. Burrow is out now. I don't see the season turning around. As far as stats, he's only played in 7 games. And one of those games, he had 0 points. First game of the season, that kind of gave an indication of how his season would go. 8 targets, 0 receptions. That equals, let me check the math here, 0 points. So if you started him week 1, it didn't really get that much better from then on out. He did have a season high game of 28.9 points, but he did have a low game total of 3.9 points. So you never know what you're going to get with him right now. He does have 51 targets, 27 receptions, 328 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns. Again, that's just across essentially 6 games where he had output. He is supposedly healthy right now, coming back from hamstring and ankle injuries, but he doesn't have Joe Burrow anymore. So if you've got T. Higgins, this season was just surprisingly a huge disappointment. So that's why he's ranked number 4 as most surprising wide receiver of 2023.
I think you'd have to be coming off of last season as a Bengals fan and, as a fantasy football owner of T. Higgins, you'd have to be excited for this season, right? You've got Joe Burrow, you've got Jamar Chase, who can spread the field as well. And then you've got T. Higgins, who's going to be a clear-cut wide receiver 2 here. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but, he could even bounce into the wide receiver 1 territory. But the way he's been performing, he's more like a wide receiver turd. And the 8 targets, 0 receptions, holy shit. I mean, that's about as bad as it gets. I can't imagine. I remember just seeing some clip of Randy Moss from years ago. And I remember the stat line was like 3 receptions, 148 yards, 3 touchdowns. And sure, you could compare gold to turds all day. But T. Higgins is not a turd, so it's just
No.
it is such a surprise.
This year, his season's lost in Dynasty. He's obviously still somebody that's massively talented and somebody that you'd want to hold on to. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. In Dynasty, he's still got a ton of potential. We're just going to have to see where he lands. I don't know if the Bengals are going to extend him or not, especially maybe not after this season. And again, it's injury related. It's not necessarily anything he did. He's just a victim of poor circumstance. But regardless, if you drafted him, you used a high pick, and you're pretty bummed out right now.
Yeah, let's move on to number three. Number three, Dave, we've got Adam Thielen for the Carolina Panthers. Now, that's a pretty grim scenario down there, obviously, with all the coaching changes and David Tepper's impatience down there. But you've got a QB, first draft in the pick who you think is going to be able to sling it across the field. And it turns out that he's able to, but a lot of his receivers aren't able to get a lot of separation. And then I think the O line just isn't buying Bryce Young as much time as he had in Alabama. So his performance just isn't great right now. But strangely, ironically enough, Adam Thielen has 77 receptions, 728 reception yards, and 4 TDs. Not a ton of TDs through there, but he's putting up points. So you got to be pretty excited about that. He's the 11th ranked wide receiver right now. And after the first week of fantasy, you might be kind of kicking yourself and saying, why did I draft this guy? He put up 3.2 points first week of fantasy, but then he started going off. He put up 20 the week after, and week three, he had 31. Week four, 15. Week five, 27. Week six, 28. So, man, he's been consistent. I think a lot of the reason, probably the biggest reason a lot of people didn't want to pick him up was because he's white, but that's just a bad reason, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a white receiver, you can still pick up yards, right? Am I wrong?
He is an aging wide receiver going to a team with not much offensive talent. I think a lot of people didn't see this coming. That's why he is number three most surprising wide receiver on this list. Yeah, currently ranked 11. To your point, he has had a few down weeks the last couple weeks. I don't know if he just is getting more focus from the defense because he kind of is one of their only weapons. Bryce Young is struggling. The team's dysfunctional, but still, if you drafted him, you probably drafted him with like the 15th round pick, you're probably going to be okay with that. I don't think anyone's going to regret having him on their team right now. He was written off. I don't know if he'll bounce back, this remaining schedule here. I hope he does. I think he's, as a veteran, has enough experience to know how to get open and be a safety valve for Bryce Young. But that team is just a mess right now. But again, he's still surprising. If you have him, you're super happy.
Yeah, yep, you're right. So good for you, whoever has him. Dave, take us into number two, will you?
So number two is when we say he's a surprise, like we knew he was a great wide receiver, right? Everybody knew he's top tier talent. I just nobody really expected him to be doing as well as he is right now. And we're talking about Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. So currently number one ranked wide receiver, and you probably used a first or second round pick on him, and that's great. That's great value. I mean, that's where he should be drafted, right? If you got him after the second round, that's a fluke, right? But the thing is, if you use a number one overall pick or a first or second round pick on a guy, you want him to have production. Tyreek Hill is like far surpassing your wildest dreams in production. He's on pace to possibly break the single season receiving record for yardage. And if he does that, that'd just be amazing. The only knock on him is that, in dynasty wise, he had said he was thinking about retiring soon, like retiring on top. But other than that, the dude's just a complete stud. And as far as stats goes, he's got 120 targets, 88 receptions, 1,324 receiving yards, along with 10 touchdowns. He does have a few rushes for some yards, nothing too significant, but he's a cheat code. And you may be wondering, like, hey, why is he not the number one most surprising wide receiver? Well, the way we look at it is there's other receivers who are more of a surprise. We're not just talking purely on talent or production, but Tyreek is number two because we knew he was going to be good, but nobody knew he was going to be this good. So therefore, number two most surprising wide receiver development of 2023.
You know what he's going to do post his NFL career? You know what he said he wants to do?
Podcasting.
Well, that'd be cool. It starts with a P, but it's not podcasting. Knows. He wants to get into he honestly said that. He said he wants to get into the scene and be an actor. And that was, I think it was after that Cam Newton, he's like, well, I can't be a star because my is 2 inches long. Did you see that? There was,
No.
honest to God, I'm not even making this up.
I thought you were trolling me here. Didn't Tyreek Hill just get married recently?
I'm not sure, but when if you're a celebrity, there's a lot of like open relationship things, swinging, that kind of stuff. So I don't think a marriage is a preclusion to being a star.
I hadn't heard that. I'm a little bit disturbed by that. But I'm sure whatever endeavor he wants to do, he would be all right at it. I thought he was going to go into like becoming a flag football superstar for the Olympics. I don't know.
Well, he might do that as well, but he really did say that he wanted to start a Korean porn, and then I don't know if I forget how it played out, but I think it was like Cam Newton's response to it. But then he's like, I just can't do it, and he basically says that he's got a small penis.
This segment went in a different direction.
It did.
I didn't realize that we were going to start talking about this. I thought this was a family friendly show.
No, this is not geared for children.
It's not.
Okay,
Okay.
speaking of topics that kids are also not going to care about, number one and the most surprising wide receivers of 2023, Puka Nakua for the Los Angeles Rams. Man, when you've got Matthew Stafford back there and he's slinging those sidearm passes to you, then it's not I'm not going to say it's easy to look good, but it's not as hard as it might be when you got Bryce Young. So even more kudos to Adam Thielen, of course. But where did Puka Nakua come from? Where did he go? I mean, this guy, he just came out of nowhere. I'm sure, only Puka's mom was picking him up in the fantasy draft. Right now, he's got 111 targets. That's 9 less than Tyreek Hill. He has 73 receptions, 924 receiving yards, and 3 TDs. But if you do look at that, let's just look at Tyreek versus Puka once more. 120 versus 111 targets, Tyreek being 120, 88 receptions versus 73, 1,324 yards versus 924 yards for Puka. So you've got exactly 400 more yards on 15 more receptions. Basically, what I'm trying to say is Tyreek gets that separation right, and he just turns on the Jets. I think Puka might get a little separation, but Stafford can find those windows. He can just get it right to Puka. He's got great route running, and he's Puka's number 10th in the NFL right now for wide receivers. And he's obviously our number one surprise. So we'll see, Dave. What do you think? You think he's benefiting from the system? Do you think it's all the system? You think it's some of the system? Obviously, he's a talented player, but what are your thoughts on that?
Great questions. This is what I think about Puka. Nobody saw it coming. I totally agree. He's got to be the number one most surprising wide receiver because of his draft capital. He largely went undrafted in a lot of leagues. He got picked up after week one. Maybe in a few leagues he got drafted like with the last pick. But the fact that he's the 10th ranked wide receiver right now, that's got to be the biggest turnaround I think I can recall ever seeing for a wide receiver player or especially a rookie wide receiver. As far as why he's doing so well, he knows how to get open. Stafford trusts him. They developed a rapport pretty quickly. He did benefit from Cooper Kupp not being around the first several, I don't know, 4 or 5 games where Cooper Kupp was recovering from a hamstring injury. Now that Kupp is back, he's still getting looks. He hasn't been as prolific as the start of the season, but long-term outlook wise, I think it's good. The thing I worry about is if Stafford ends up retiring, is the new quarterback going to know how to get Puka the ball? That remains to be seen. Dynasty wise, he's a top asset in Dynasty because of the potential he's flashed already as a rookie. But either way, yeah, the most surprising wide receiver that I can think of, if anybody disagrees or has another number one more surprising wide receiver, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to see your comments on that. So
Yeah, then do your own podcast. Come up with your own ideas, huh?
yeah, TJ.
Yeah, TJ, if you're listening, why don't you do your own podcast with your dad? Freaking TJ. Anyway, we don't actually know anybody named TJ. That's just a joke.
I just was making up a name.
Just making up names
off the top of my head.
Okay, Dave. Well, we better wrap this baby up. We're moving into unrelatable territory here, so we'll keep this as relatable as possible, and we're gonna let everybody go. Again, like and subscribe if you can. Dave, any final last thoughts before we click end on this record?
I just appreciate everybody that is taking the time to watch our videos, and if you get any benefit,
let me get my Kleenexes, Dave. I'm gonna start crying. Okay. Yeah.
If you do see any benefit to it, it really would help us out if you give us a thumbs up. That could help the algorithm, and we would like this video to reach tens of people, not just singles of people.
Dave, whenever you plea for more likes and votes like this, I think of the meme where the guy and the girl, she's like sitting on his lap and then she like looks really uncomfortable. and then they put like another meme next to it, and there's a gun next to her head, and then there's
Oh,
like they
yeah,
build off
yeah,
the memes.
yeah,
I
I
think that
know.
one's so well done. I love
Today
that
is my birthday, and on my birthday, I'm going to introduce you to my girlfriend.
one. Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's
Thanks,
a hilarious meme. They took that pretty far. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to sound like we're begging. If you don't want to give us a thumbs up, that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, who cares? We don't like you anyway. So, okay, well, that's gonna wrap it up for this one. We'll see y'all next time on the old Fore Birdies podcast. Thanks.